Hey everyone, welcome back to Eye Opener Society. Thank you for tuning into this new episode with this new little format thing that I'm just kind of throwing out there for everybody. We still have obviously our regular Monday episodes. We still have our Wednesday night meditation episodes. We still have the short attention span podcast. But I'm doing this as a test run and a test run only just to see if it works out good, because I'm trying to fill, as much time as I can, getting ready for when I do retire and we turn Eye Opener Society into internet radio and I got to fill space. So I'm thinking about story time and I want to go completely outside of what Eye Opener Society is about with this. So we're not going to talk about spirituality or, religion or, meditation or anything like that. I'm just going to pick something kind of random and just sit back and do a story styled podcast for you. And if it catches on, then, maybe the topics will change and whatnot. But the whole idea came because it is in that, we're getting onto this season now with Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up. It's colder depending where you are. I guess some people are lucky they're not in a colder climate, but I'm in a colder climate. It starts to get you want to get yourself more cozy. And that's what I thought about getting yourself cozy, sitting around and telling a story. And I don't mind telling personal stories, and this is kind of personal in a little strange way, but we'll get into it a little bit more. But I'm looking to do these things, like I said, for you, the audience, something different to listen to. If you just want to throw something on, to occupy some time so you can relax, that's what this is going to be about. So, without further ado, here is the storytelling time. So this goes back to my childhood, and it's kind of relating because I always was, and I still am, a very big music fanatic, and I'm still into the old 80s rock, glam rock, hard rock, heavy metal. Always have been, and even more so now. And now I've just gone more hardcore and I listen to some very hardcore music, but I also change it up because if we remember, if you are in the age range that I am, when you're growing up in the 80s, you didn't really need a playlist that made any sense. You could be into the hardcore heavy metal stuff, but you could still have country music in there, and no one really judged you. I think the gatekeeping was down very much back in the 80s. Now, unlike now, gatekeeping is prevalent everywhere. I know I did a podcast on it as far as spirituality, spiritual gatekeepers. But now, especially now with the advent of social media and all, the amount of gatekeeping in music is completely sickening. I think I stopped listening to a lot of newer music and I just stick to the older stuff. There's still some new stuff that I do like and I really get into, but yeah, because of the gatekeeping and you're not a true heavy metal fan if you're listening to jazz, and that's such nonsense because I do. I listen to jazz. I listen to meditation, just music. I get into all of that stuff. But yeah, if I was to say, if I was going to be stuck on some island somewhere, no, I want rock. I want anything hardcore, something that gets your blood boiling and moving. That's the kind of stuff that I like, and that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But back in the 80s, it was actually quite tame compared to what's going on today with music. And I'm talking about lyrics and all that. And as we all know here on this show, there is zero censorship. I don't care, about foul language. I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way we speak. And with music, it's now art. And I don't care. There are some songs and definitely certain types of music and certain genres that really do use profanity where it's just prevalent. And the thing is, there's an on-off button. There's a skip feature, on any kind of player. Hit the off button. If you don't like it, you could just turn it off. And that's what I do. If I don't like a song, if I don't like a band, skip next one. or I just, you can mute it, you can fast forward it, whatever it is you have to do. And that's why I am so stuck and hung up on our freedom of speech because it's artistic. The way we create things, our very words are art, their expression. And when musicians use it, it's even more so, it's even more powerful. So we really do lose a lot when we start censoring stuff. And I've noticed now, especially on YouTube and all, if you mention the word drugs, death, kill, or anything like that, even in a context, it's being censored out. And that is so weird to me, because we're using these keywords, but it's still speech. And in context, if you're listening to it, it's not, you know, I don't know. I don't want to go into a whole tangent because I really want to get to the story, but so let's set it up. All right. I do have some notes just to keep this here story going. And of course, my old brain don't remember too much, but this goes back to 1985. I was 15. That was a little revealing right there. But yeah, I was 15 years old. Now, 14, 15 years old, middle school. Oh man, heavy metal was the thing. I mean, we had Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Ozzy Osbourne, Twisted Sister. And speaking of Twisted Sister had an album out. The one that went mainstream. And they had a couple of albums out prior to that were actually really good. But the mainstream one that made them famous, the Stay Hungry album. And it was a lot of anthem rock. And when I listen to that album now, oh, it's nothing. There's really nothing on there, lyric wise, that would make you go, clutching your pearls. There was one song on that album, SMF. Sick motherfucker might be what it was, but in their wisdom, they said it's serious music fanatic. So you could use, any analogy you want with that. But that was probably the strongest thing on there. And what is even in the words? There was no word saying sick motherfucker. It was just SMF. That was it. So really, the album cover was really crazy. It was Twisted Sister. I mean, Twisted Sister in their whole transvestite type of getup, and he was sitting, in this kind of, concrete studio, gnawing on this huge animal bone and over the top stuff, like most imagery on album covers are. And of course, me as a 15, old kid made me want to go out and buy that because of that. I was like, wow, this is something I want to listen to. And yeah, so I had that album, and there was a lot of other albums out that were going through a lot of nonsense because this was 1985. We had some, I don't know, there was the whole satanic panic and all that other nonsense. Basically, kids just being stupid like they do now, setting trends that are absolutely stupid, you know. But I think the over policing especially from government, stay the hell out of what we listen to. It's just music. Just listen. That's all. That's all. You listen to your music, we listen to our music. And we were kids, man. We were rocking out to this stuff. It was nothing more than us just banging our heads, listening to this cool music, thinking we were the coolest people on the planet. And the whole thing was set up by this thing, the PMRC hearings, which is the Parents Music Resource Center. This was founded in 1985. It was by Tipper Gore and some of the other political spouses. Tipper Gore, obviously married to Al Gore at that time. I don't know if they still are. Who knows? These people just got together and wanting to do something. And it's always in the name of safety. It's always in the name of help. But it doesn't. This is taking away freedoms. And what they wanted to propose was that on any record album that they deemed explicit, they were going to slap these ratings on them, these big stickers, warning, explicit content. Obviously, you know the outcome of that because, if we look at what's going on today, but we'll get to that. So yeah, that was just 1985 again. So they just and their whole idea, they wanted to warn parents about explicit music. But you know what? Here's the thing. Parents were aware of the music. I mean, Christ, I was blasting it 24 hours in my apartment, you know? Everybody heard it. Everybody knew what the lyrics were. Everybody knew what type of music it was. So that's why it was so frustrating to have these people, just because they're, politically connected and all that, they they wanted to warn parents. And honestly, if parents are being parents, they don't need to be warned. They already know what's going on. So Dee Snider, right? He's the lead vocalist of Twisted Sister, still active today. Love him, hate him, whatever. I know he's a little bit outspoken, but the man is brilliant. You know, he really knows how to conduct himself business wise. And irregardless, Twisted Sister has always been that one band that they never used drugs, they never used alcohol or anything like that. They were just people hardcore into the music that they had, trying to get it out there to the masses. And it took so long, and it got that one album out there. So that's Dee Snider. He came in here and he wanted to come into this hearing because, all right, so the hearing starts, right? It's a whole hearing on this here ratings and warning parents and Tipper Gore and all these people wanted to talk out against this devil music, whatever they wanted to call it. But in walks Dee Snider into this whole setup. Now, I think a lot of the people that were on the, this here whole MPAA thing, I think they were looking to see if Dee Snider walked in full Twisted Sister regalia, which he did not. He actually he showed up, with the cut off denim jacket and all. He still fit the part. But what they were unprepared for was how eloquently he spoke and how eloquently speaking Dee Snider actually is, because he is a businessman. And listen, music is business, and this was his business. So he really knew how to convey his message without being Dee Snider. And Dee Snider, if you ever gone to any of his concerts, yeah, it's a lot of profanity laced when he's up there, hey, fucking rock on and all. And that's fine. Well, most every musician, in that genre at that time was doing the same thing. But, not only they want to slap this, sticker on the albums from the create, that these artists create, but they, wanted to fine or charge people, like criminally charge artists for getting up there and cursing in public. Well, listen, I'm paid money for my tickets, and if this is what I want to hear, this is what I want to hear. So the whole thing during that whole time, the 80s, the mid 80s especially, there was just so much panic and so much nonsense set forth by this ridiculous Tipper Gore character. She was completely, like I said, maybe she was trying to do well, but again, I think most of the time when politicians or family or spouses of politicians try to help, they really fuck shit up. And that's what I think. So Dee Snider, his whole thing, he thought that the government, or at least he feels the government has no business controlling art, which is what it is. Music is art. People create music, they create this art, and then they put it out there for people, and the government should not be involved. Honestly, I feel the exact same way. Um, he also feels that parents, not politicians, should guide their kids. And that's another thing that I think we should focus on. Yeah, parents are the ones that are responsible for the kids, not police, not the teachers, not, government agencies. Let parents decide what's right. Um, so, and Dee Snider, he's married, he has kids. And again, like I said, Dee Snider set forth the rules in the whole band. They don't drink, no drugs. Uh, you know, the whole crazy rocker corrupting America thing. He kind of shut that whole stereotype down. Yeah, he was wild, art wise, album cover wise and all. Um, but when it all started out, and again, before Twisted Sister had that album out, I'm sorry, yeah, that one album we're talking about, Stay Hungry, that's the one, Stay Hungry album. There was song and an album where the song came from called Under the Blade. I love that song because I think that was one of Twisted Sister's hardest songs, and I really enjoyed that one. But the whole PMRC claimed that song was about sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. And it really threw Dee Snider for a loop on that one. So he calmly said in the whole hearing, he was like, it's about my bandmate's throat surgery. The sadomasochism and bondage is in the mind of the person who read it that way. That would be Tipper Gore. So that line completely destroyed their argument because Tipper Gore saying that this is about rape and, machismo and, you know, and Dee Snider's like, well, if you're interpreting it that way, I think your mind is sicker than what you think my mind is. It was a great, great moment when, he said that to shut down Tipper Gore because again, we don't, everybody just they read a lyric and this is a song title, just a title, Under the Blade. Um and that song again, it was written, based upon some surgery one of the band members had to go on their throat. So Under the Blade, it's a surgery and he just wrote a song. And lyrically wise, you just get creative and you created a song out of that. So that was one of the best parts of that whole thing, and just the way he spoke. And not only was Dee Snider involved in this, but we had Frank Zappa too. Uh, you know, Frank Zappa as well. He's a real out there artist as well. Another one thinks and he knows how to speak, even though most of his speak you might have to read between lines and all, but he's really good. He went fully philosophical, and he talked about the dangers of censorship, government overreach. He called the PMRC's plan ill-conceived and dangerous. And he also mentioned that intellectual weight to the musician side, this way supporting the musicians, you know, calling out to not have these labels thrown on their creations, their art. Uh, and the other big surprise too, which came in as a shock, I think, to the whole PMRC and John Denver. When John Denver, this is Mr. Sunshine, on my shoulders guy. God rest his soul, man. He came in, and I think Tipper Gore and all the other uh, people on that whole side was thinking, oh, this is great. This is John Denver. He's going to side with us because his music is not profanity laced. It's not devil music. So he's going to be on our side. Yay. Well, until John Denver started speaking and actually shut them down. Um, you know, they really were expecting this clean cut guy to come in, America's sweetheart, and agree totally with them. But what he actually said, he fully opposed the PMRC. He compared it to basically book burning and book banning. That's what he was comparing it to. So that was a real shock to the whole Tip Gore side there. He warned that it was a real slippery slope for artistic censorship. And he brought up Rocky Mountain High being misinterpreted as a drug song. Uh, and that's how he explained how easily misreading art can cause moral panic. So just think about it. If you're Tipper Gore and you're talking about all this and you got this whole committee going and you're having this hearing and you're thinking, wow, John Denver's walking in and now all of a sudden John Denver just called me basically an idiot for creating this whole thing. And that was a fun moment because John Denver really just as well spoken as Dee Snider, but Dee Snider has a different image and John Denver has his, like you said, the America sweetheart, kind of soft-spoken, personality. But yeah, he was completely against it, called it book burning. Really, it's no different than the two. Uh, so of course, we all know what the outcome is, regardless of what was said, regardless of how well Dee Snider had spoken, regardless of what John Denver, Frank Zappa had said, or anything like that. They still passed this whole regulation that, yeah, oh, albums got to be labeled. We got to put these stickers on them, you know. um, but in the end, it was a win-win, lose-lose kind of situation, I think, for everybody. Um, what happened? What I don't think anybody in the whole, Tipper Gore family there thought was going to happen. What resulted in having these stickers put on albums? Well, kids like me went out and they only purchased albums that had these stickers. So this was like your calling card, like, oh man, all of a sudden artists are realizing, well, if I got a sticker on here, more people are buying them. So they made sure they put something explicit in there somewhere and get a sticker, and boom, those albums sold a lot more. So yeah, it's just one of those things now. Like, if a child, or well, a teenager wants to go see something, a movie, at least back then the ratings were way different. It was just, G, PG, R, and X, and then your double X, triple X, whatever the case may be. They changed all those ratings too to make them more ridiculous. But yeah, if you saw R rating on a movie, more kids wanted to see it just because they figured it'll be more explicit and with maybe more action or cool stuff basically. Just like these labels on these albums, once they got it passed, musicians did not really lose the argument. They had their argument. But again, these here were badges of honor now, and people were buying these albums more than they would buy one that didn't have one of these stickers on there. So basically, this here story that I'm telling is basically from my time back in the 80s, man. 80s music was so much more different. Music today, like I said, probably really should have stickers on them because it's really, I think, crossed the line, but I still don't believe in it. Again, you buy what you want to hear. You listen to what you want to listen to. And we shouldn't get all up in arms. We should just watch our kids and see how it affects them. Some people, some kids, it actually affects them for some reason. Because I remember Judas Priest was on trial. Rob Halford, the lead singer of Judas Priest, had to go in for a meeting because suicides that were done off of one of their albums. And right away, oh, so the musician, it had nothing to do with suicide at all. But the musicians were taken to court over this. And, people just interpret things differently. We can't look at a sculpture and say, oh, it affects me this way. And then somebody could say, oh, it affects me this way. And if it's affecting me badly, there's no reason we should go after the artist that sculpted that. And this is how I feel about the Second Amendment as well. You know, Without that Second Amendment, we won't have free speech. That's basically what it boils down to. I'm not going into a whole political argument here, but we cannot sue gun makers just because somebody went out and did the unthinkable with a gun. It doesn't work that way. We need to go after the person with the sick mind. That's what needs to be done. But that's what this basically matters. What a story like this, it shapes the way things change. How social media moderation, book bans, who decides what's dangerous, what is art, Uh, but it's all about free expression, intention, not letting fear dictate creativity, mindfulness around how we consume media. Uh, so anyway, this day and age, I mean, Dee Snider's still around. He talks a lot. Like I say, he's very outspoken. Love him, hate him, whatever. He sometimes says things that really shouldn't matter. But I think he feels that the music world didn't back him up as much during that time. He was probably the only one out there doing it, other than Frank Zappa, Mr. John Denver. But yeah, he felt he didn't get enough, support from the music industry. But again, I think most of the music industry knew that if these labels were passed, that they're going to be badges of honor. So there was no reason to, fight. But again, it's good to stand up and fight because, again, we shouldn't have people dictating to us what art is, and we really shouldn't. Um, so that's my story. Like I said, something completely off topic, just something that I always remember. When I sit back sometimes and listen to music, and if one of Twisted Sister songs come on, I'm taken back to that moment in time. It's just one of those things I remember as 15 years old going on in the news because there was a lot of things going on in the 80s, but that stood out to me. And that's why I just wanted to share the story. Again, I'm going to try this out. This was just a test run anyway. And I'm going to see if I find some more storytelling things, probably more personal, I think. I think that would be nice. I'm going to try and push Lizzie into doing some storytelling. I know she's got tons of stories too. Maybe we'll do some stories together. But like I said, I thank you for tuning in anyway. If it's not your cup of tea, not a problem. Like I said, I'm going to be trying this out anyway and see how long I go on with it. But thank you again for joining us. Don't forget, join us for our regular Monday episodes. So every Monday, Eye Opener Society, right here on eyeopenersociety.podbean.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts on. Also, if you want the video versions of these, you can find us on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. And I chose BitChute and Rumble simply because they believe in free speech, which leads back to the story I just told. Free speech means a lot. I could talk about topics where other platforms will literally ban me on. So, again, tune in whenever you like. And I thank you again for tuning in today. Take care.